Hello everybody and welcome to the 360 Video Masterclass Week 3. We're moving along, which is fantastic. Just want to welcome everyone back. Today we're going to look at how we get footage into a timeline, Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. And we're going to be using, eventually we'll be using some tools from Boris Effects, Boris Continuum VR, which is a plugin that is available at our library partners. The iMac computers will all be loaded with this. So what I'm demonstrating today is what you can do with the editing on your own system. And then if you need to do some additional finishing, you may need to come into one of the library partners' iMacs to finish it up, which is great. That's why we have it all set up. So just want to start off. I want to thank all of our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts. Then we have our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. And this is what makes it all possible. So again, thank you. And so as I mentioned, we have the iMac computers. So there's 2 computers available at each library. And those are, we're just completing the last few for Collingwood and Wasaga Beach. So there'll be 2 systems at each library. And what I'm demonstrating today is a little bit ahead. We've looked at the Kodak Pix Pro camera, the 360 camera. So that's going to be available at each library partner as well. So as long as you have a library membership card at one of these library partners, you can access the equipment, take out 360 video cameras, produce your own 360 video, shoot 360 video, and then do the post-production work as well. So this is where it gets really cool and exciting in terms of how do we set this up. And it's a bit more manual than typical, but it's also quite easy. So as I mentioned before, you can totally just use the GoPro Quick app to get 360 footage done with the 360 GoPro Fusion camera. So that's one way. And now going forward with the Kodak camera and the GoPro Fusion camera, we'll be mainly focused on the Kodak one just because the Fusion's going to an end of life in the software realm for desktop computers. But it will continue to be utilized as using the GoPro Quick app. So today we're going to look at setting up a project for editing in Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. We're going to look at adding our clips, editing with 360 video, and just what that means. And just wrapping our heads a little bit around the fact that it's going to be a little bit different and it might be a little bit weird, but it's all going to make sense once we go over it. So yeah, let's remind ourselves. So we have this equirectangular 360 video image. So last week, week 1, we shot stuff. Week 2, we got everything ready and rendered it for editing. And now we're looking at editing it in Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. Remember, we have a 2:1 aspect ratio. So we're working in 3840 by 1920 in terms of the editing project. So that's the kind of ratio that we're going to need to use. So again, it gets a little bit more processor heavy. And again, that's why we have the iMac computers that you can come and use at the libraries. So this is, again, if you want to go beyond just what you can do on your phone or just in the rendering of a couple files, or even just a shot. We did a little bit of the trim work for rendering, so you could just say, okay, hey, I just want to show this one clip. I have this really cool shot. I want to post it, and that's as simple as it can be. You post it to YouTube or Vimeo, that shot that we rendered last week, you can just post that. No post-production is necessary beyond that. But if you want to get into post-production, editing, working with titles, changing the image, and any kind of color correction and all this kind of stuff, you can treat it the same as you would a video file. So anything you'd shoot, let's say with the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, same idea, you shoot and then you can do color grading and work in it that way. So that's the really exciting part, that it has that ability. So you can take footage, work on it, rework it, and do all the post-production with it. So how exactly does that work? So let's jump right into this here. So in terms of the files, I'm just going to switch over here to the computer. So here's just a folder, the GoPro Fusion files. They're just named after what was shot. So I'm just going to double click, open one of these up. This is what it looks like. So it's that equirectangular render. It looks kind of weird and funky, but this is the thing. And then here's the shot as it's just moving. This is rendered out. So that's fine, that's nice. But you can see it's that, that kind of unwrapped globe. Now let's look at what this is. So show movie inspector, and this is going to verify right here what we were talking about is what is the resolution. So here it is, 3840 by 1920, 2:1. So that's great. That means we did everything correctly, and we're working towards being able to edit this file. So that's one. We did a couple of these, and it took a little while to render, so we didn't spend the time rendering them, but here's another one, 14 seconds. So, these 14 seconds, I think they took about 8 minutes or 7 minutes, and it's all this magic that's happening. It's trying to get rid of stitch lines, it's trying to make everything nice and smooth and ideal for editing. So that's kind of what happens there. So you can see a pretty cool shot, but I can't do anything with this. This is just the equirectangular. I can't move it. It doesn't go anywhere, right? So that was our GoPro Fusion renders, and again, see we have it all nicely organized here. So we have GoPro Fusion footage, we have GoPro Fusion renders, and then we have our Kodak 360 renders, Kodak Card 2, and so on and so forth. So we just try to always keep our folders labeled rendered versus the footage so that we don't mix anything up and it keeps it organized. So here's our rendered shot from the Kodak camera, and again, nice. A much faster render because it's working with the two lenses on one single card, so it doesn't have to do all that extra work of stitching the two cards, but it's working off one card, so it's already kind of preloaded, if you will. And again, same idea. We know we've done this right because here's the always the payoff. We have 3840 by 1920. You notice the frame rate 23.98. So that gives us kind of our information of, how do we edit? And if we remember, video editing is always about what is our resolution, what is our frame rate, right? So we have our resolution, 3840 by 1920, and we have our frame rate, 23.98. So everything's rendered, everything's set, just 3 shots, nothing major, but we're ready to start working on this. So what I've done is I'm going to just close this off. So that's in QuickTime, just opening up, and these are all rendered as, that was an MP4, and let's have a look at the GoPro renders. Those are those ProRes MOV files. So about 1 gig for the one there versus the Kodak one is a lot smaller, 21.5 megabytes for, I think it's something similar, only 5 seconds. So you can, relatively MP4s are a bit smaller than the ProRes, but that's fine. That's what we need to work with. So now I have a Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. I have it already opened, and this is open up. Let's just have a look here under project settings, what my setup has been. So what I've done is I went to custom, and otherwise you can see there's all these like HD and so on. We need to go custom, and we need to manually input this. So it says 3840 by 1920. That is the key step. Then we also need to say that our frame rate is 23.976, and that's great. And then it's the video format, video monitoring is just a HD monitor out. So it's gonna just show me like one side. But I'm not really worried about that because this is just for me to see what's on the screen here in the actual Resolve program. Then you just wanna hit save. And then you have that nice square 2:1, not square, the rectangular 2:1 aspect ratio ready to go. So from here, I'm just going to import this as I would any other kind of video footage. It's nothing fancy. And so I have my GoPro Fusion renders. So I'm going to click on that, click on command to highlight the other one. So again, just quickly, so this command button right down here. So command is always lets you highlight extra ones and clips. So I now have video 1134, 1143, and I will hit open. It opens it up, and let's have a look at how it shows up here. So look, it brought it in perfectly. That's exactly how we want it. Equirectangular, 2:1, and we're ready to go. So now we just treat this like anything else. It has audio. So here we can hear some of the audio playback. Let me just turn that on. Here we go. So you can hear, there's going to be some audio playing back here. Nothing fancy. It's basically me just walking, so it's not too exciting. Just the water there, right? So you can see there is audio. What do we need to really use out of this? Probably not too much. We're going to probably do some sound design with that. So let's just take our shot. So we can just do this just like we would regular editing. I'm going to make an in point. And make an out point there. And then I'm just going to do an overwrite down there. with the button, and it's gonna put the first shot in the timeline. So that's the other thing. We just need to create a timeline. If you haven't done that, you just create a new timeline, and we're gonna call it 360 Masterclass Demo Cut 1. So and then you can just keep changing the cut name. So cut 1, cut 2, and keep that going to make sure that everyone, just so you know what's going on and where you're at in this project as you build it. Okay, then I'm gonna get this shot here. Again, just an in and out point. I'm going to do an over right there. It's going to zoom out here. And now you see we got shot 1, shot 2. Really, again, same thing like any kind of video editing. We just have our shots. It's going to be in the timeline, shot 1, 2. You can edit them. You can trim them. There's nothing different about these. There's no special treatment in terms of how you edit them. We can do dissolves. Anything like that, we can work in that fashion. So it works like that. So now I'm going to import my go to import media. It's also a Command I, and I'm just going to find our Kodak 360 renders here. I have that one render, and grab that, and here we go. And here's the other shot. So you can see that's nice. It's flowing in right there, and that'll cut. We can see that terminal building kind of in the background of this shot. On the left there, and I'm going to cut into this shot. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. We got 3 shots. Nothing too long, but it just gives us a quick ability to demonstrate this, and you can see everything looks really weird. We got walking shots here. We got the still shot, and we got this kind of a still shot. So this gives us the combination of walking, still, and how do we tell this story and how does it work? Okay, so that's it. So now we have the ability to then start viewing things. So we can go down to the Fusion tab. So it's going to hit Fusion, and what it lets us do is right up here in the actual picture window, I'm going to go to 360 view, and I'm going to say auto. So now this lets me work with the actual footage. So I can now see what it looks like. Right, so that's that way. I can go to 360 view, vertical. So it's just different types of views. Right, and that's it. So now we can actually see what our shot looks like from the front angle. That's what we're doing right here. So that's really nice. And now I can go to the next shot, and let's just go here. Let's see what that looks like too. Okay, and we're gonna go 360 view. Right, so that gives me a view of that angle right there as well. So that's nice. Okay, and we'll go over here. Same thing. I'm going to say 360 view, auto, and that gives me that. So you can see how I can quickly see what's going on in this world of movement in terms of how we can move around with it, right? So that's it. So that we've just been cutting, right? And now we can do the same kinds of things. I'm going to look at adding a little bit of color grading. So I'm just going to go right into the color mode. And again, it might look weird, but we're treating it the same way. So I'm just going to, let's say I want to give it a little bit of boost, maybe give a little bit of contrast, maybe give it a little bit of warmth here. In those mid-tones, warm it up a little bit, and let's bring that overall light up like that. That's looking nice. That gives me a lot nicer view. Same with this one. We can get bring that up a little bit. I'm going to do this kind of an S curve. So those of you who have watched some of the color grading exercises, this is just kind of a repetition of that. And you can definitely check out our color grading workshops too. So that there we have one already posted on our YouTube channel. Check it out. It's very similar to you know, the same ideas here that what I'm doing right now. You can check it out and then see how it can help you. So I'm just going to get this a little bit warmer too, so we have that kind of look, and just kind of give it a boost. Look how the details we can start to see inside here. So we just don't want the outside to blow out too much, but we can definitely see a little bit more details there. So much nicer looking. Okay, so see, we've just done color grading. It's not, you know, eating up anything in terms of like memory or anything like that. We're just like editing regular footage. We're able to do that. We're able to do this. Yeah, and that's all great. Okay, so let's say that's you know, something that we're kind of happy with in terms of you know, what's going on, and that, let's say there isn't much more that we want to do. Like we're happy with kind of where the front of the camera is and so on. What we can do there is now we can do deliver, and we're going to render this, and just to show you guys what this is going to look like. So what I want to do is we're going to do just like a custom, let's see right here, custom, and we want to preserve it. So make sure it says 3840 by 1920, and this is really important that we don't change that aspect ratio. So we're going to go 360 master class demo, cut 1. You're going to find a nice spot for it in that drive, 360 master class. We're going to do cuts. I like to always put it in a cuts folder, save. Great. Okay, so it's a single clip. We're going to just export it out, add to render queue, and we're going to hit render all. And it's just going to take a little bit of time here. Okay, so now let's have a look at what that looks like. So here again, it's all rendered out. Okay, and that's good. And that's exactly how we want it to look. It's not going to play in any kind of 360 fashion yet, but we have, let me see if we still have it on this computer. There's a GoPro VR player right here. It's going to open that up. See if this will work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's been kind of a little bit all over the place on me sometimes. So let's hear. We're just going to drag it into the VR player, and there we go. So now, here's the VR player. So this is what we just created. So this VR player, we load this on the IMAX 2, and this lets us look. Now I can spin around, and there's me walking with the camera. And so this is the equirectangular playing out as if it were a 360 video. And this is what it will play like in Facebook, on Vimeo, and YouTube, as long as we make sure that we tell it that it's a 360 file. So that works fine. Let's go to our next shot. We'll just play forward. See, look at that. I can see where we're at. And there's this part. Look at this. I can spin around. I can see the terminal. See how different that is than before? And we can really see everything. Look, you can't really see the stand that it's on. It's so beautiful. You don't even have to really do much to get rid of it. It looks pretty like nice and clean. I feel like it's totally seamless, and I'm able to enjoy the water. But look, I can look around, and this is the cool thing. So this would be like with goggles or any kind of a gyroscope and a you know, iPad or anything like that would be moving around. And yeah, or like those Oculus goggles. And look at this. So here we go. Here we are in the middle of the terminals. Look at that. Isn't that great? Right? It's pretty breathtaking. You're just right on top here. And let's just go back here. Just stuttering there a little bit on me. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we're able to see all this stuff, right? So you can see we go from movement to the other way, right? So that's how we can quickly see what we've done. Okay, so that's fine, but we haven't really done too much else to it in terms of like control. We've done some color grading, we've decided where our edits are, and we've that's about it. So now what we can do is we can also decide where we want to put things. So I'm going to go back to the edit mode, and I'm going to make a copy. So I'm just going to right click up here, duplicate timeline. Okay, and we're going to go cut 2. Okay, and now I'm working in cut 2, which is great. I'm going to do a Command S right over here. I like to try to show you guys this as much as possible. So just a nice quick Command S. Command S, that just always helps to save and keep us all saved up on here. Okay, so now what I can do is we're going to explore some of the effects. So let's go right here, effects library, and we're going to go down to open effects, and then we're going to scroll all the way down here, and we're going to go to the BCC VR. Okay, and so this is the small kit of the extra tools that just let us finesse and fine-tune things. It lets us move things around. We can do some sharpening, we can do some flickering, fixing, and stuff like that. Now these are just specifically designed for an rectangular image to make sure that it's seamless and that you don't have an effect that only works on half of it. So we have to remember we have this 2-to-1 ratio, and if we don't treat it like a 2-to-1 ratio, we could potentially just be fixing or doing an effect on one of them, right? So, and we'll look at that experimentation as well, what happens, the do's and don'ts here. So what I'm going to do is use this thing called re-orient. So let me just zoom in on here. So it's under the BCC open effects I've gone to, and I'm going to go to what's called BCC VR re-orient. It's a great tool, and I'll show you why. So by putting this on here, okay, I'm now able to, didn't do anything yet, but watch up here. I'm going to go up here to my effects, right up here to effects, click on effects, and now I'm able to play with reorienting things. So I can do an x-axis reorientation. Oh, remind me later. We won't do the update now. So let's redo that. So I can just pan around. So what's key here is when we're editing 360, we have to remember our main objective in storytelling in 360 video is to try to help the audience and guide them in a way that it's not too much extra work for them to have to figure out where they're looking, where they should be looking, or where they might end up looking. So if we can guide them, one of the main ways we can guide them is to orient them, and that's why we reorient. So I just shot it, holding it. I didn't think about where the camera is, and we talked about the seam lines, the stitch lines to avoid that where a person's face is. But if you're just carrying the camera like I wasn't really aware of exactly where one lens is pointing or what the front is. So in reorient, I'm going to spin it around on the, in this case, the y-axis, right? So on this kind of axis here. So instead of it looking sideways, I'm going to reorient it. So the audience, by just watching the video, they will be looking down the path. And I want them looking down the path. And then from there, I can even add movements into it as any other kind of visual effects. I can do keyframing. So I can go like here, and I can pan across and tell them, okay, look over here, because maybe there's a swan that comes in or something. And then I can bring them back to the trail. And this guiding is what will help us tell the story. So let's say the next shot is a little bit on the side. We might want to pan around a little so that the trail veers off and we see the terminals that we eventually get to. So this is kind of that idea of the reorient. So so in this y-axis, let's have a look again. So I can spin us anywhere. So we can be we can be looking back, we can be looking this way, right? So look at the whole, I can spin us anywhere. And now the key is where I'm pointing here in the middle, right? Wherever that middle is, that's going to be our central point of focus whenever the video is playing. That's going to be what becomes the default front. So I always like to try and get that, working. I can also make people look down. I could make people look up a bit more, right? So that's that roll up, right? So that's kind of a fun idea. So I'm just gonna click the reset there and go like so. And here, now I'm gonna just preview it. And this preview lets us quickly look at where we are. So here I can now see what's left, I can see what's front, I can see what's right, I can see what's back, I can see what's top, and I can see what's bottom. So very similar to what we were doing in that Fusion tab. I just wanted to show that Fusion tab because that is that kind of extra in case you don't have the BCC VR to reorient and you just want to see what the footage will look like without reorienting it in your own Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. That's where you do it, in that Fusion 360 view. So I'm just going to go back to preview, and there we go. And I can, I can spin this around however we want to. Let's see. There can be overlays, so a lot of fun extra stuff. And there can be a preset, so you can, there's also sorts of like preset elements that you can do too and things like that. So that's it. That's all we need to do for the reoriented. Now let's go to the next one. Okay, and same here. So right now I'm looking down the middle. And, again, that's not really that exciting. So let's go right here. I'm going to put this on. Okay, and what I'm going to do is go to Effects. I'm going to have I'm going to click open the source. And actually, this is important too, so I should mention this. So the source, we're just working with mono. There can also be stereo 360. So in that case, you'd have to just make sure it's in stereo mode. And there's a few modes, top, bottom, left, right, and so on. But yeah, definitely gets a little more complicated. So now let's just pan this around, because I really want that terminal to be in the middle here of what what we're seeing. So just right there. See, now I got that terminal building, calling terminals right in the middle, and that's where I want people to go. So they're walking down the trail, So and then maybe around here. Let's say around here, I'm going to do a keyframe. You can see it gets a little bit slower now because we've reoriented 360 footage. And I'm going to say, oops, the other way. I want to make people look through here so they can kind of, as if they're almost seeing that the 360. So again, it's going to get a little bit slower here just as we watch out. Okay, we can cut to that. Okay, and then this one, this one's not too bad, but probably just a little bit of a reorient as well. Where exactly, let's have a look. I almost feel like I want that window really right in the middle, right? So, and maybe we're just going to have them. Nope, I don't think we need to do any kind of that. Okay, so now let's just have a look. What will it look like? The preview. Look at that. We're looking right out the window. That's fantastic. Okay, and then same with this one. We're going to click on that effect, right? Reorient, and then we're going to just say, hey, what does it look like? So view mode, preview. Look at that. We see all the ducks. We see the terminals. So that's looking really nice to me. Okay, so we've done the reorient, and that's a pretty substantial thing to have done. So let's go back to, I'm going to now hit Command S. So just always, it's right here always. I always like to just quickly show that. So this Command S, that's your friend always. Command S saves. We've called this the 360 Masterclass demo. And then Command Z, alternatively, Command Z is the one that lets you undo if you're not happy with something. So let's always remember those. Okay, I'm going to go over here to deliver. I'm now going to just call this cut 2. Okay. And we're going to just have a look at what this does. Add to render queue, and let's render it. So it's going to take a little bit of time, so it's a lot slower. It's going to take a few minutes, 3.5 frames per second. It's not a really long sequence. I think this is really key to remember is when you're doing the 360 video work, it's gonna really push your computer a lot more, like the graphics processing and the regular processing. So it just depends like how far you want to go with it. Like I said, in the quick app, we can just create a timeline. We did renders last week. We can just put some of those renders up. But if you want to put these shots together into creating some sort of a story, do some reorienting, do some of the color grading, and then we're going to get into titles, a bit of sound, and then make a whole 360 film, it's going to be prepared for a bit more rendering time than you may be used to. So it's probably taking right now, you know, this is easily 10 times the length of rendering of what it would normally take. So it is going to be pretty heavy on the computer. But again, we're using solid state drives that are library partners, and that works out really well, so that you can definitely be able to render there if you're having any kind of issues in terms of rendering on your own home computer, desktop computer. So right now we're rendering basically 3 frames a second. Typically, this will render, if we're in 24 frames, it can render 60 frames a second with some color grading. So, substantially grinding down to get this stuff done. But that's the good thing. So the really important in the editorial of 360 is really just cut down exactly what you need. It's not a format that really where you want to make 1 hour long cuts and then kind of figure out what to do with it in the editorial. So you can render long pieces of shots, but then you want to be really selective, put that all together and understand, okay, I'm going to reorient, I can do some color grading. So that's the key, is why I wanted to show you guys that you can reorient and then we can color grade. And the next thing we can do is then we can put in graphics, so titles, and we got to make them special so that they actually can become kind of a weird equirectangular title, so it looks normal. Otherwise your titles look kind of like a weird kind of a oval if you don't use one of these effects specifically. Okay, so we've rendered, so that's great. So again, just Command S, Command H, I'm just going to hide that, and here's our next cut. So now you can see from cut 1 to cut 2. Oh, I think I left the field of view on the last one, so a little bit of a mistake there. But let's just see what this looks like in the VR player. So GoPro Fusion VR player. I'm just going to go back up here. VR player. There we go. Okay, let's put this in here. Yeah, see, and then it just kind of pans across. See, so now you can see that's our setting. Instead of me having to go to it, I'm centered. And then here's my next setting. So see, the window is perfectly centered. I don't have to worry about it. So that's really the advantage there, in terms of getting that to work a lot better. Let's just see what's happening here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that preview mode, so that's good to know. If you leave the preview mode, it'll render itself out that way. So let's just do that render again. Add to render queue. I'm just going to replace that, render 1. Let's get that rendering, and then we can see that one more final piece. So what we're going to do for next week, we're going to get into graphics, putting in some titles. We're going to look at adding a little bit of sound, and then we're going to look at how we can actually upload it to the social media platforms such as YouTube and Vimeo. And you can also put it in Facebook. And the good thing is a lot of the 360 video now, it recognizes what is 360 video. In the past, you had to do something called injecting the video with metadata so that it would realize it's that. But now you can simply tell it in Vimeo or YouTube that, hey, this is a 360 video in case you don't know. And a lot of it now flags it automatically. So it already knows that that's what it is. It might just be confused whether it's mono or stereo. So stereo 360 would actually be using two cameras, a left and right eye, just like you would doing like a stereo filming event. Left, right, and then you have that stereo ability. So that's something that could be happening as well, right? So that's another option, not something that we have in terms of equipment that you can take out, but it's definitely a variety of 360 video, is that there is the stereo capable 360, which is a whole other beast, if you will, in rendering and dealing with it and so on. So because then you have double in terms of working with stereo, so it gets very complicated. So yeah, so this is the key, is to work with this first, get this fine-tuned. So you put in the shots that you want, get it down to the length that you just want. I wouldn't play with having too much extra. And this is the thing, you're really working towards finishing the fine cut, and you're working towards what is the right length, what's going to be enjoyable for an audience. And 360 video, the key is to have enough time in the shot that you can explore and enjoy, but you don't want it overly long where the person gets bored of the shot and they've already seen everything in it. So if nothing's happening, it's important to keep cutting to something else. So if the shot is done and there's really nothing too much more interesting to look at, I would recommend getting to another shot. And that's a great way to keep the audience engaged and interested. And that's always your goal in filmmaking, and especially in 360 video. How do you keep everyone engaged and interested? So here we go. The rendering is just about finished here. Fantastic. So there we go. Just Command H. I'm going to get us back to here. So here's kind of now the comparison. So you can see this one's showing the front. Just a comparison between cut 1. This is our cut 1, and this is our cut 2. So we've reoriented. We haven't lost any quality, but this lets us enjoy it a lot more. So I'm just going to again play it in the GoPro VR player. That's one way to do it. Otherwise, you can load it right into, let's say, Vimeo or YouTube and check it out there in terms of seeing what it might look like. And so I'm just going to drag it right in here, GoPro VR player, and there we go. You can see right away this one versus this one. This one I'm looking sideways when I start. This one I'm looking down the trail. So it's much more engaging for me to be like, okay, I want to actually look down the trail. Look, I've spun you around, so you see the terminal, then I cut to the terminal. So you see how fun that is in terms of, here's the quick reorient. It could be probably a little bit slower. It might be a little too fast, but I'm forcing the audience to spin their head, whether they have or not, to the terminal. Then we cut to the terminal. Again, this is in the center, right? Before we were just looking like this way, but this way I keep that point going. And then from here, I'm going to cut to the inside. So now I'm up in the terminal building looking out. And this is how we can tell the story of the terminals. All right? So there we go. Let's watch this through one more time. So just walking, 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 spin. I get over here. And then we're able to, right? Pretty cool. So I'm quite happy with how that turned out, and that's working really nice. So again, all we did, we created that 3840 by 1920 2:1 aspect ratio custom sequence. We bring our cuts in, bring our shots in that we've rendered in 360 from the GoPro or the Kodak 360 camera. We put them in, we edit them like we would anything else. We did a color grading, we did the BCC VR, so it's Boris Continuum and VR, virtual reality, and that suite gives us those extra effects in the Open Effects tab. We use the re-orient to reorient where people should be looking to create what's the front. So that's always our goal in that reorient, is keeping the audience looking to the front of the action. They can look around, but we want to always guide them. This is the main thing. You can trick them too. Maybe something important's happening over this way, but you're telling them to look this way, and then sound could help them. Oh, I should be looking the other way, right? So that could be fun for like a thriller concept or something if you're leading them astray. And then we can render it out, saving the custom setting. So we don't want to render it out in HD. We want to still render it out 3840 by 1920. Then we watched it in the GoPro VR player, and we can see that it's working with the re-orient. So that's it. That's what we're able to do. So that's our final sequence here. We have these final shots. These are 112 megabytes, so definitely not too big. I know we're only doing about 18 seconds of total video. So, you know, it's a bit of time, but you can imagine we can put together a minute or two quite effectively, and you know, it wouldn't be painful at all. It'd be quite enjoyable to do. So that's the main thing, just figuring out your reorientation and of, you know, where the audience should look in the 360 video panel, and adding some effects and going on from there. And then we have the final QuickTime movie, and from there we can export it. But what we want to do, and what we'll do next week, is we're going to look at how to add text and graphics using the insert feature effect. And then we're going to look at adding some sound and finalizing it that way. And also some transitions and how they can work, what can or what cannot work. Because there are some that can work, and then there's some that won't work that well. So that's all to come next week. Okay, so let me just switch over here. If there's any questions or anything, we have a couple minutes here. You can also, I'm just going to put my email. You can email me, tom@tbmcs.ca. Send me an email if you have questions specifically about the 360 video masterclass. Send me that email about equipment, taking it out. You don't need a proficiency test. You can just go out and take it as long as you have a library card at the library partners. And the Kodak cameras will be delivering those out to all the library partners in the next couple of weeks. So just stay tuned. We'll have an official announcement on that as well. Currently, Blue Mountains Public Library and the Wasaga Beach Public Library have the GoPro Fusion system, so you can take those out if you have a library card there, and then we'll go from there. So, yeah, I think we're looking pretty good here. So let's reconvene next week. We have our final week 4. I want to once again thank all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and we have our library partners as well. We have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and Wasaga Beach Public Library. So thanks again for joining me. It was a pleasure to go over you know, this 360 video world. I'm hoping that it's making sense, and as long as we stick to our specifications and technical details, the rest is just like editing any kind of other video. We just have that pre-set up, the custom sequence, project setting, and then everything else just works like a normal video edit. And it's really that simple. So yeah, I hope you can enjoy, try it out. If you have some footage, you can find tons of footage, sample footage online even just to edit with, but these will stay right here, so you can rewatch them on Vimeo. They'll be posted on our YouTube channel, so you can go back to these, and hopefully you can achieve some 360 video digital art production, make some films, tell some stories, and love to see it. So share it with me, and I can give you some feedback. And otherwise, I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, and week 4, we're gonna go over the finals. Take care, have a good rest of the day.